Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning, good morning. We are about 4 minutes behind schedule, so if you're not already seated, please do so and be welcome. My name's Daniel Francis. I teach Antitrust here at NYU, and it is my very happy job just to say good morning and welcome. This is a time when there's a ton of love for antitrust out in the world, but at NYU, we love antitrust super much. So it's kind of an opportunity for us to brag a little about how much love for antitrust nerdery there is here at the minute. We have so much student demand for antitrust classes. Our antitrust classes are at capacity. We have a wonderful student antitrust and competition law society. In fact, I see one of its co-presidents, Jackson, right there. That society has had a bunch of agency speakers and other really distinguished members of the antitrust community to visit. Dave Lawrence, Rohan Pai, Patricia Galvan. They've all been here recently, along with others, to talk to pretty packed rooms of antitrust students. And there's a pretty large group of us on the faculty, both at the law school and at the business school, who are full-time antitrust nerds, and joyfully so. So for us to have the opportunity to host this event and welcome you into this cathedral of love for antitrust is a particular pleasure for us. I'll also add that it's a personal joy for me to have an ABA NYU hybrid event, because it's a coming together of really the two streams of my professional life. So this is just my second year on the NYU faculty, but I realized this morning as I was thinking about what I was going to say that this is my 17th year I am starting as a member of the antitrust section. And the section has given me so many wonderful friends and experiences and happy memories that for me personally, it's a real joy to be able to be the one welcoming you this morning. So my only other job before handing over to Fiona is to make sure that you know who has made all today's wonders possible, because it certainly wasn't me. At the ABA, Cara Kendall and Paige Basil have worked tirelessly to put together the program of events and the extraordinary array of logistical arrangements required to make this happen. Margaret Stafford, Andrew Heimert, Melanie Aiken have also made pretty hefty contributions to the magic of this gathering. And at NYU, Nicole Arst and David Peer have been completely indispensable in crafting our opportunity to come together and be antitrust nerds together for several hours on this slightly gray and rainy Friday. Very briefly, Harry first, where are you? Harry, I just want to acknowledge and profoundly thank you for creating and curating this event and for trusting me to kind of wear the NYU mantle of helping to bring it along. There's a lot of your DNA in today's gathering, and we wouldn't be here but for you. So thank you. With that, please welcome our fearless leader, my friend, Fiona Schaefer.
Thanks so much, Daniel, and it's really a pleasure to be here. It's a trip down memory lane for me. Not only did I used to live in this neighborhood, but before I even got to New York, I came here on a visit as a poor student, and I was fascinated with the NYU campus, the law school, and I'd heard of Eleanor Fox. I didn't know her, of course, but I had, I guess, the gumption to go up to her office. I found her office. I left a little note. I said, "You don't know me, but I know you. It looks like you're out at lunch. I would love to talk to you about doing a PhD with you. And I'm going to be back here at 2 o'clock. I hope you'll be here too." And lo and behold, she was back at 2 o'clock. She didn't know me from Adam. At the time, I had this idea that I was going to do a PhD on telecom deregulation, and that was in the mid-90s. I was in Europe at the time, and we were a few years behind the US, as you can tell. And she said to me, "Well, that's really interesting, but have you heard about this other thing? It's called international antitrust, and I'm really getting into it. And I was like, no, but I really want to learn more about it because I really admire you, Eleanor, and the rest, as they say, is history. Another thing I wanted to share with you today, over the past few days, few weeks, and few years actually, my son has really been struggling with his mental health. And that's been really tough. And it's caused me to think about, what is the point of all of this? What is the point of what we do? What is the point of antitrust? Does it matter? And as I was in the shower this morning, as you know, my only good ideas come in the shower, there really is a point to what we do. And what I wanted to say to you is, you are the most important people in the analytical, intellectual exercise of competition law, consumer protection, and data privacy. Because you are the intellectual backbone of our community. You are the ones who are going to keep recalibrating what it means to be an antitrust professional, what it means to weigh the pro-competitive and the anti-competitive in a world of AI, sustainability, and other huge challenges that we and generations like my son are facing. And that takes courage, it takes community, it takes intellectual rigor, it takes being someone who cares about the truth. And as we can see, antitrust actually does make a difference, and consumer protection and privacy. Like, who knew that workers actually really matter until a few years ago? We've refocused, we've re-energized ourselves, and antitrust has been a way to do that, to guarantee or at least help people in our economy who are not big corporations earn a decent wage and be able to travel to a place and an employer for a better life. There are many other examples of how antitrust, competition, and consumer protection help us. The link between monopoly and democracy is something that Tim Wu has made, a connection that I find also very powerful. And in an election year, this year, probably the most important year of our lives politically, what you do really matters. And I know that sometimes you may think you're in the room, you're by your computer, by yourself, slaving away and thinking, what is the point of all of this? I want you to know you're not alone. We are a community. The antitrust law section is a community that embraces you. We need you. We want you. We want the plurality of your thought, your perspective, your courage, your strength, your intellectual rigor. And I'm just delighted to be here today to support that. Thank you.
Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for coming here. And this is largely because when we conceived of this program in 2010, I want to be very clear, it was Harry, it was Ned, it was Eileen Gotts, and myself. The idea was to have dialogue in a situation where practitioners, students, academics could come together, both senior and junior, to really engage in ideas and discussion. And all too often, unfortunately, we now have tweets that are not really well thought out and nasty. That's not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is really something where we can talk about ideas. And what we see in our world of consumer protection, data security, and antitrust is unfortunately a microcosm of something much broader going on. So I'm going to focus on the more positive before we get started. Every time that we do this, every 2 years, the quality of the interactions are a function of you all asking questions, either to people on stage now or during coffee breaks. The coffee breaks in many ways are the best place to have this kind of interaction. So I thought maybe one year we'd really change it around and have hour-and-a-half-long coffee breaks with 5-minute sessions. But I do want to also just say very quickly something else of how does this happen every year. So Dan has already mentioned, all the people to thank. There are a lot of papers that come in from around the world. It takes us a while to sort of sift through and figure out what's the optimal number of papers by topic, by field. So just to give you a very quick history, initially this was a truly next generation antitrust law program. Then we expanded our market definition to say maybe it should be law and economics. Then we expanded it further to say, well, some of these other areas also really matter and are intersecting. Why shouldn't it just be antitrust plus privacy and consumer protection with particular focus on sort of data issues? And then why not to also include the, I'd say, adjacent business fields, information systems, strategy, marketing. We have yet to have an operations paper. It's just a matter of time. I promise you there's some really cool stuff in that field too. But we finally have an operations professor as a discussant. So actually we are diversifying even in that way. We're about to get started. We have a tremendous first panel. And just for those of you who haven't seen this before, what we have is our emerging scholar presenting, we have a more senior scholar discussing, but then there's this thing called the real world that really matters. And so we get a moderator and a discussant. The moderator actually is secretly our second discussant. And you'll see that where we try to get as many different perspectives as possible. So the one thing I ask is, this is not like a traditional econ conference. You don't get to say your name and then immediately the hands go up and interrupt you. Actually give them their time and the discussants, and then just the hands go up. Or if it's in other settings, maybe the hands don't go up and you just sort of open your mouth. Probably better if the hands go up, just because we have a large enough room. But just to show you, an example of when Fiona says this is a community. Harry First has gone trick-or-treating with my children. He's more loved in my family than I am, because they look at him and they think chocolate. I want to leave you on that thought, for a happy thought. This is not a shower thought. This is just sort of a broader thought. Harry First equals chocolate. So with that, let's bring up to stage Anne-Catherine. You are moderating, so why don't you tell us exactly who's coming up?